Joining me now is my colleague, Forbes senior editor, Dan Alexander. Dan, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Before we dive into your reporting, I do want to talk about where you were the past week, which was in a New York City courthouse covering the New York Attorney General's fraud case against Donald Trump. To start us off, what was that like?
It was very interesting. There were maybe, I don't know, 60 to 80 people inside the courtroom, and their names and faces that you recognize because you see them on the news every day. So sometimes Donald Trump is there, sometimes his son Eric is there. Of course, his team of lawyers who have become famous for defending him are there. The Attorney General's prosecutors, or excuse me, officials are there. And then a smattering of members of the press, along with a heck of a lot of police officers. We were looking at a lot of evidence up on the screens. It's all very numbers heavy, math heavy, which of course is fun for me as somebody who's been looking into the numbers of Donald Trump's business for years. Fun to see other people talking about this stuff and diving into the details. And the case is fascinating.
You've been crunching the numbers for years, so let's dive right into those new documents you're saying that were submitted into evidence in this case last week show that Trump lied to a premier financial institution. How was he able to fool his longtime lender?
Well, banks pride themselves on doing due diligence, but the truth is a lot of their due diligence consists of just crunching numbers that the people that they're giving money to are giving them, and they're trusting them to be honest. And there are provisions of default if they're given false information. But what we've seen in the course of this case, and really have known before that too, is that Donald Trump and the Trump organization passed on plenty of false information to its lenders. And in this case, Deutsche Bank fell for a lot of it. Some of this stuff was simple stuff. The number of stories in a building, 40 Wall Street, they say, has 72 stories. SEC documents show it has 63. Also, the square feet in a particular building. So if you stick with that building, they say that it has 1.3 million square feet. If you look at SEC filings, it shows more like 1.1, 1.2 million square feet. Those sorts of differences and distortions made it into the credit reports that Deutsche Bank was putting together on Trump. These deceptions did seep through to the bank, and the bank believed them, even though they, of course, had much greater access to financial information than people like me do.
How was Deutsche Bank able to be fooled, though, or not even have a better understanding of these assets? I know you're saying that a lot of banks take the numbers at face value here, but this seems like a pretty egregious error, and multiple errors at that.
Yeah, and they're not the first ones to be fooled by Donald Trump. I think that one of the things that people have to understand about when you're looking at Donald Trump's finances is for years, lots of people have looked at the numbers, whether they're banks or media organizations or whatever, and said, okay, we don't trust this on its face value. Deutsche Bank didn't trust it on its face value. And so then they start saying, okay, well, this isn't worth that much, and this isn't really that big. And they start making adjustments. And by the time that they're done, they sort of, brush their hands off and say, man, we really, did some great work there in cutting back these distortions and getting it to a more reasonable place. But what they may not realize is the depth of the lies. So if somebody lies to you 10 times and you catch 8 of them, good job, but you still have been fooled by 2 things. And that's basically what happened with Deutsche Bank. Yes, they applied haircuts to the values of its assets and didn't fully trust him on a lot of things, but they still got duped by a lot of others.